Hey everybody, how's it going today? Well, I had a couple subjects I wanted to talk about today, and one of them was China. And it's funny because before I made this video, I thought, if I talk bad about China, the truth is, no matter who you are, if you post something negative about China or critical of their government, then you will be put on a blacklist and banned from China. It's not a joke. And I think that that's one of the most absurd yet hilarious things. And it's totally worth talking about, because actually South Park made an episode last week, and it was called Banned in China, but it was spelled B-A-N-D. And they always have a play on words. South Park is phenomenal for tackling modern issues. Sure, it can be distasteful at times, but I love South Park. It's probably one of the most, let's just say, politically revealing shows about our society that I've seen out of any television show. Every documentary, every, a cartoon, everything's just trying to prove some, personal point or vendetta. Sure, a lot of them have information within them, but let's just say that South Park has a no-holds-barred attitude on these kinds of things. And it was about Randy, who wanted to go over to China to start selling his cannabis. If you don't know the story, then I'm not going to go into details, but South Park Randy was one of the characters, and he went and started his own weed farm in Colorado. And now he wants to get into China, and he's willing to compromise his integrity. And these guys nail it. Trey, Matt and Trey, the creators of South Park, they're always able to nail a subject that needs to be talked about, and they can make a show within a few days of what happened. But so I would highly recommend to watch that one. But to get to the main point here, hey little birdie, a little bird just landed a few feet away from me. What's going on right now is pretty absurd. And if you haven't, I don't really talk political in my videos, or, but this one it shows a lot about what's going on in our society right now, in our nation. That American corporations are willing to sell out to China's dystopian empire to make a buck. China is the fastest growing country. They have brought more people, they have more people that have phones or have grown technologically over the past 20 years. It's amazing how fast they've grown. And they've done it on the labor and the blood and sweat and tears of their own population, of course. And if you say anything against the government, if you're a journalist that says something they don't like, you're instantly thrown in prison or never heard of again. This is well known, yet American companies continue to do business in China because it's so profitable, and it's becoming more profitable. Google, a couple years ago, announced that they weren't going to, that they were going to remove their, search engine from China because China wanted to censor, and Google has this, do no evil attitude, right? And supposedly they weren't willing to, censor themselves for China. Then last year, documents were leaked about a new program that they were working on. It was a censored search engine specifically for China. Now they've denied this, of course. I don't know what it's become of it in the modern day, but I know this: money talks, and companies are willing to compromise their integrity. All of this happening seems to kind of evade public interest until something happens like like Blizzard. It's a video game company who makes a specific, I don't recall what the game is, but it's like an online role-playing kind of card game where people compete and there's prizes. One of the interviews with some of the players, one of the guys supported Hong Kong by wearing a gas mask and goggles and said something about freedom. And he was banned from playing games with Blizzard, the company, for a year. And he had to rescind his $10,000 winnings because of what he said. And the two guys that interviewed him were fired. And so this started a huge controversy in the gaming world, in which everybody started saying boycott Blizzard. So Blizzard had to back up and say, okay, you're only suspended for 6 months and you can have your money back. Basically, the people are starting to speak up because they're sick of companies bowing down and bending over and spreading their butt cheeks for China just to make money. And this is the big question. We live in a capitalist nation, supposedly, here in America. that means people are able to make money. Okay? Fine, so be it. At what point do you stop compromising your integrity? In other words, if you're making money, but it's on the backs of those who don't have the same freedoms to make money as we do, or the same freedoms to speak out, I guess that's a personal choice to do that. If you're not aware of how bad China really is, I mean, if you look up Tiananmen Square, let's say, if you're not aware of Tiananmen Square, then maybe you need to learn some more history. But it was a massacre. The military came into Tiananmen Square and mowed down and shot several civilians. They opened fire on their own people, and this lasted a few days. And you might know the famous picture of the guy who stood in front of a tank, or 3 tanks with his grocery bags. It was a whole event that really kind of solidified the Chinese people's rebellion against the government. It was scrubbed from history. If you talk about it, if you say anything about it, you will be imprisoned, and the internet is completely scrubbed clean of anything from that date, which I believe was June 4th, 1982. Now, this has gotten so bad that Apple's new iOS operating system, apparently they removed the emote icon for the Hong Kong flag. Isn't that interesting? We're constantly adding new icons to the list, but they removed one, the Hong Kong flag. And I'm curious to know why. Why would you bend over backwards as a huge tech giant for a nation? Well, because you make money. And so I just say shame on Apple, shame on Android, shame on Facebook, shame on all these companies. But there's nothing that we can do about it, right? We're just the users of the... so basically people are catering themselves to the the whims of a communist dictatorial government. It's pretty pathetic, don't you think? I mean, it's just absurd. But money talks. Well, there's another internet provider, internet social media site, you would call it, I guess. Everyone knows of TikTok. I've seen a couple ads for it, but I've never used it. It seems like it's for kids, teenagers or whatnot, younger people, to post quick clips of videos. And TikTok delisted a whole bunch of Hong Kong protest-related discussions or videos. And so they got on the hot plate. They are compromising, they are censoring American people from talking about an event that's happening in another country. I believe it's the manager of the Houston Rockets. Isn't it Houston? I think. It's the Rockets, whatever. Basketball. Basketball is big in China. And they have they make billions of dollars in revenue from China. And Daryl Morey, he apparently tweeted his support for the Hong Kong protests. It wasn't even that bad. China said that they were canceling NBA games. They weren't going to air any of the Houston Rocket games. This whole controversy started. So what did they do? He turned around, deleted the tweet, and then apologized. Daryl, don't be a pussy. I don't care how much money you're making. If you can't stand by how you feel and what you have to say because you're afraid of offending a communist government, fuck you. I don't know how else to put it. But South Park's main attack on this was related to Hollywood, because Hollywood is the worst. Absolutely pathetic. And folks don't realize that Hollywood has been censoring and rewriting their movie scripts for a decade, or probably many decades. Really China hasn't been big as far as cinema until the last 20 years, right? Well, China wants to show movies too. People want to see the movies from America. And if they can make $1 billion in China, China has, three or four times more people than the U.S., and they are growing much faster. And so naturally, people are going to look to this economy as, wow, there's a lot of money to be made. But I guess where do we draw the line? Where do we sacrifice our own values and morals? Hollywood self-censors itself to cater to Chinese whims. It's pretty pathetic. So I just wanted to get that out. There's actually a show one of the YouTube channels I've been watching for a few years now is China Uncensored. May not seem like something that I would be interested in, but Chris Chapin, I think is his name, the host. He's a pretty funny dude, kind of dry sense of humor, but he's actually got out there and done some journalism. He's gone over to Hong Kong. He's an American journalist, but he reports on what's going on in China, and he's been saying this shit for years. And now he's like, you see? A guy like that would probably be thrown right in prison if he showed up in China. I know he's gone to Hong Kong, but anyhow, we are censoring ourselves for other countries that have got rich by the fact that they... I'm not gonna. First off, I should say I'm not gonna completely fault China. China has grown a lot, not always in the bad directions. I'm not here to determine whether, this based on their government, but as far as their people, the Chinese people, they seem to be all, happy in a lot of regards, but, it's kind of hard to really just be yourself when you're being monitored by hundreds of millions of cameras. I mean, there's a camera for like every 10 people or something. It's pretty crazy over there. And if you get caught jaywalking, the camera will take a picture of you and you will get a text message right away saying you're being docked, fined, and your points are being, basically, you're getting a thumbs down for crossing the crosswalk, and it deletes your social points. It would be like losing credit points if you got caught on camera doing something, and everybody is on a monitored system, and hey, if you want to live like that, so be it. But I don't think there are many people who would really say, this is how I love life to be. I mean, anonymity is dead with the internet, of course, and it's very hard to be, to not be tracked. I was going to do a whole video about how Facebook tracks us and everything next, but it seems to be to no avail. I mean, what's the point in even talking about it? We all know, and people willingly give up their information, don't read the fine print. But when it comes to our major corporations and movie producers bending over for Facebook, Facebook bending over for China, all I can say is big thumbs down. Fuck China. If you can't say that and honestly stand behind what you say and how you feel, you're a pussy. Hate to use that term, but for lack of a better term, it's pretty pathetic. Matt and Trey from South Park did issue an apology to the Chinese government. Oh, and it is priceless. You've got to read it. It says, we apologize to the Chinese government. It says, we too prefer money over freedom. And it is so cynical and sarcastic. It's like a good long paragraph, basically just poking fun at Hollywood and the corporations for bending over. Sports are a joke. I don't watch sports. I know that the NBA, football, all these organized sports is just such a shadow of its former self, just like so many other groups. Everything has been taken over by ignorance, and now folks are basically, it's only about the dollar. It's only about the dollar for people, and that must be a really sad way to live, because when you're laying on your deathbed, none of that shit's gonna matter. So, thanks for listening, and once again, fuck China. And I should say, no, not fuck China, but rather fuck the Chinese government for putting their people through so much bullshit. And if that gets me banned from China, so be it. Although I'd love to ride their bullet trains sometime. Pretty awesome. It's one thing that they have done, is that they're actually moving forward with a modern approach to green technology, which the U.S., it seems like we're kind of the outcasts now. We've fallen behind, and pretty soon we're going to be irrelevant in the big picture, so we better get our heads out of our asses too. It's not about competition. It's about a global success, so everyone can live better lives, but that's a fucking pipe dream too. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you think. Be well.